I've left something very, very interesting for the end of the day. I've already given quite a few hints here and there during the conference for those of you who were able to attend, and also in the keynote. I'm going to talk about an internal project that we've started this summer. So it's in the very early stages, and it's called Modern Site Building. So I'm going to start by looking back at year 2003, which is more or less the year they built this, or at least it feels like that, right? So in that year, most sites were still built with HTML, with CSS. Of course, not all of them, right? But there were also site creation wizards. And that super ugly one that I'm showing there is because I built it, right? And I'm very proud of it. But it was very, very limited. It only allowed certain options, filling some fields, and then it created the site. So a few of us were involved in a project that was also very, very ambitious, probably more ambitious than this project that I'm talking about today. And in that project, there was this dream that up to 1 million different users could create their own sites, and they needed to be very different. With the tools of the time, so many sites, they would look so similar. So basically the question we asked ourselves is, what if we use this new technology, at the time it was a new technology called portlets, and we start building sites based on these small fragments, and we create a lot of them, so suddenly we can just drag and drop them into a page, and each page can be drastically different from the previous one. So it turned out that it was possible. It turned out that it actually had many benefits, especially compared to the tools of the day. And as a result, many websites flourished. Okay, don't judge them by the standards of today, right? Actually, this improved over time. And actually, not only those thousands, but hundreds of thousands were created all around the world. Okay? But as I said, you cannot judge those websites by the standards of today. Why? Because we are in year 2017. And what is considered a good website, what is considered a modern website, has very, very little to do with those websites that I just showed you. Okay? So this is a realization that we've been thinking about for quite a while. And we finally decided to do something about it. The first step, of course, is to define what do we mean by modern website. It actually means many, many different things. Some of them are intuitive. It's even hard to explain. But just so that you get an idea, not a full description, but an idea of what I mean by modern websites, I've chosen a few characteristics that are quite common to see in modern websites nowadays. The first one is they're very carefully designed. People pay much, much more attention to design than ever before, than definitely 10 or 15 years ago. Almost every website looks awesome today. If you see any website, if you go to archive.org and you see any website that was built a long time ago, then you say, wow, it's super ugly. How come they had this website, right? It's because we are used to websites, almost any website, even intranets, being much prettier nowadays, especially the ones that are built right now. Another common pattern is these very long pages. So this is a pattern that it's very common, especially among marketing pages, right? So this is actually just one page. It's not one site. And I couldn't show all of it. I would have needed 2 or 3 slides to show the whole page. It's super, super, super long, right? And actually, this concept of having a side menu, that's not common anymore. I mean, even if Liferay's website, oops, sorry about that. So even in Liferay's website, we actually have several menus. We have a bottom menu, and we have a top menu, and then we have another menu at the top. There are 3 menus here, and some websites have more than that. So another thing is very flexible layouts. You see layouts like this, and much more crazy layouts. What is the structure here? So imagine you had to implement this with the concept of Liferay layout and make each of these pieces a portlet. It's quite challenging. It can be done, but it's quite challenging, right? And then there are other concepts, not so visual as what I've shown, but we have things such as landing pages, which are critically important, especially for public-facing sites. And these landing pages actually combine several of the characteristics that I've just mentioned. Has a focused design, has a very clear purpose, has very custom navigation. The navigation of a landing page has nothing to do necessarily with the rest of the site, or it's very custom built. Maybe just navigation for the portions of the site, and just very specifically carefully chosen links to other parts of the site, right? Because you want the user to just click that red button at the bottom. So I have a question for you guys. Can this type of website be built with Liferay? Yeah? Yeah, yes it is. Okay, so correct answer. It can, right? All you need to do is have a highly qualified Liferay expert to do it, like you guys, right? So that's the thing. It's possible, but we believe it can be much, much better. We believe it should be much more obvious to create these websites with Liferay. So the question then to ourselves is, what can we do about it? And the answer is this project, the Modern Site Building project. And like any project worth participating on, it has to have this big, hairy goal. And our big, hairy goal is create the best site and content creator ever. How does it sound? Thank you. Okay, no pressure. Okay, so we set out to try to achieve this super difficult, maybe impossible goal. And we decided to start from this, which is, let's not try to just evolve what we have. Let's not try to just copy other products. Let's just start by focusing on the real world needs. Let's start from that. And the real world needs specifically of the people who are creating these sites, these modern sites. So the question is, who are these people? Who are the people who are creating sites, right? And the answer was that there's actually quite a few different profiles involved nowadays in creating a website. It's no longer the one guy that knows HTML or the one guy that knows how to use this CMS or templating system. It actually requires several highly qualified people to do a website. But among them, we decided to settle on 3 main roles that are always involved, one way or another, but they are always involved in creating a modern site. And these 3 roles are these 3. A web developer, a designer, oh man, this is crazy today. A web developer, a designer, and a marketer. And when I say a marketer here, let's see, stop. Done. So, thank you, I don't deserve it. So a web developer is pretty obvious, right? A developer that knows HTML, CSS, etc. A designer, otherwise it's impossible to make them so beautiful. And a marketer. And a marketer is just an example of a business user. But we've chosen marketer as an example because we believe it's probably the one that has the most challenging job of all the different business users who may be the ones creating the content or deciding how the content should be communicated, right? And of course, this role can be broken down into many different roles for the larger sites. But as a summary, we believe these 3 represent key roles in here. So our approach is, instead of trying to give a tool that is perfect for all of them, instead, let's try to give them, each of them, a tool that is perfectly designed for their part of the job. Okay? So that's what we're gonna try to do. And I'm just gonna give you a few hints of the ideas that we came up with. Again, this is very early in the project. A lot of things may change, but there are 5 key new concepts that we've come up to the conclusion that we could incorporate into Liferay to be able to satisfy these needs. Number 1, page fragments, okay? So what are page fragments? Basically, that's what modern websites are built of. Right? We have these small pieces of content that can be combined to create one single page, okay? So as you can see, this page actually, it's a Liferay.com page. It can be built with portlets. But imagine how easy it would be if you just could combine these fragments. Actually, all of the examples of the previous slide are actually examples that I got just by asking our designers in the Liferay.com website. Because that's actually the way they work. They design these fragments, a web developer implements them, they combine them, and that's their website. So since this is a developer conference, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this concept, on the fragments. But because it's also a developer conference, some of you may be wondering, I know in the conference some people said it, okay, hold on, what are my portlets? I have a lot of portlets, right? So does that mean that we are creating the page without portlets? And the answer is yes. But that's not all the answer. The answer is that we're going to create a new type of page, specifically focused on content-heavy pages. So don't worry for now, right? So keep calm, hold on to your portlets. So portlets will be no longer necessary to build content-heavy portlets, but they will still be the best way of building other types of pages, right? Which are also just as important, okay? So how are fragments created? Well, first thing, what we said in the keynote, embrace and enhance. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to embrace the way web developers work. So whether it's Atom or Visual Studio Code or Sublime or the next cool tool that comes up, they will be able to use that tool to create their fragments. Why? Because that's what they are going to use anyway if we decided something else. Sure, but then what? So we're also building a new tool, which we call the Fragment Editor, which is, again, targeted to this web developer. And this is an online tool where this web developer could actually, if desired, implement the whole fragment here, but most probably they will import it after they develop it offline. And the main purpose of this tool is to help preview the result and also to help enhance it. So what do I mean by enhance it? If the fragment is just going to be an static content, then it's pretty easy. You can do it offline. But that's not really what the needs of eventually the designer or the marketer will be. So let me show you an example. Imagine this is a fragment, right? It's crazy simple, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't fit in my slide. But it's enough to show what I mean by enhancing it. And in this case, I'm enhancing it with two things. I'm going to mark editable aspects, and I'm also going to inject some dynamic elements. So as you can see here, I'm saying that that sample title is editable. And I'm also saying that it's localizable. And I'm doing the exact same thing for the image. I'm saying that that image is editable. And I'm also saying that it's localizable because sometimes the images have text and you also want to make them localizable or for some other reasons, right? And then at the very bottom, you see something even more interesting, which is in this fragment, I may want to introduce some dynamic elements, such as here there is a list of web content. Here there is a navigation menu, and we'll get to that. Or here is just a weather widget, and I pre-configured it for the city of Madrid. Okay? So those are dynamic elements. I want to put a word of warning on this specific slide. It applies to all of them, but specifically to this. This is just an initial proposal. Actually, this was in a different way on Tuesday before the unconference. It changed thanks to the feedback on the unconference, and it changed again last night thanks to the feedback of one of you last night, right? So this is a better version. So we're showing this to get your feedback and learn from it. Okay, so we have the fragment. As a web developer, I've created this fragment. Now, what do I do with it? Well, the next thing is I want to organize it in collections. Or collections that basically describe what you want to do. So collections like page headers, banners, lists of content, okay? So that's fragments. That's page fragments is the first key idea. Second key idea, content-centric pages. As I said, portlet pages are still very useful for certain use cases, but they are not being a good fit for content-centric pages. So In addition to fragments, we're introducing this concept of content-centric page templates. Actually, page templates for portlets are not being as useful as we envision them to be, but we think this concept is going to be much, much more interesting. All of these are examples of real page templates that we use for Liferay.com. They actually have this implemented in design, like in Photoshop, and they actually figured out a way to use Liferay so that they can actually implement these page templates with very complex web content structures and application display templates. So we want to make that thing that only experts on Liferay are able to do nowadays much, much obvious and easier to use. So in fact, we've created a tool, or we are in the process of creating a tool for the designer to be able to take a look at these page fragments that same designer has designed in Photoshop, that the web developer has implemented and put into these collections, and then just by dragging and dropping, create the right combinations of page templates. Not only that, but we wanted to make it super easy to build these fragments and page templates from designs that third-party designers have done and may have even uploaded to an existing marketplace, such as Bootstrap Themes Marketplace. We think that's key because one of the keys to success is that not only big websites which may have a dedicated designer can benefit from this, but other smaller websites which just want to buy a design done by others. And we also want to make it very easy. Once it's inputted into Liferay, once it's created, you can also export them in a format that's easy to share. Okay? And again, this would be a tool for the web developer. 1, page fragments. 2, content page templates. So number 3. Okay, what is the final step? Let's create the pages. And here the concept is, I want to edit the pages, this type of pages, as if they were one content. Because that's what the marketer thinks about. This is my content. This is my landing page. That's just one content. So we've created a tool for the marketer to do just that. And I'm actually going to show you in action, although this is not fully implemented. This is just a word of warning. This is based on mockups. So this is the new page management portlet that we're building, okay? And I have a little video to show how a page is created by choosing a page template. And now I have a visual editor where I can change the text or I can change the image. Because those are the two things in that fragment that, if you remember, we said they were editable. And you can also see at the top that I can select several languages. And if I add a new language, I could edit in line that text, that title, and also the image, right, for the different languages. So basically, the marketer just edits inline the content of this page. And when she's finished, she will click the publish button and will publish the whole page all at once. Okay? Concept number 3. Now let's go to concept number 4. Concept number 4 is asset display pages. Right now, the display on any type of asset in Liferay is done within a portlet. Okay? And that has many benefits, but it also has shortcomings. One of the shortcomings is you don't have a lot of control, or the designer nor the marketer has a lot of control of how the asset is displayed. It actually will be displayed in the same way that the list of assets where it's coming from will be displayed. Okay? Or it will need to take the whole screen, and you cannot add any additional portlets. So you cannot really create pages like this very easily without a lot of tricks and customization. So in order to achieve this, we're introducing this concept, asset display pages. These are a type of pages that are specifically created to display assets, whether it's a web content, a blog entry, etc. So how are these created? So we are actually leveraging one of the previous concepts, which is the page templates. So the way a marketer can create a display page, let's say for all blog entries with category energy, is just choose one of the page templates. It will most probably be a page template that is designed to display an asset. And then just say, here, this is the title. These are the fields of my blog entry. This is the author. This is the headline, etc. Actually, we can even make it smarter. We can, for all of the most common fields, we're just going to do the mapping automatically for you, because it can be done. Okay? But you can still have some specific fields that you decide whether you want to show them or not, or whether you want to show them in one place or another. Right? So basically, once this is created, all the blog entries, which is what it says up there, if you can read it, all the blog entries will be displayed with this specific visualization. So what are the benefits that this has? So first of all, assets become first-class citizens. Right now, pages are the only thing that are first-class citizens in a Liferay site. Here, suddenly, an asset becomes a first-class citizen. You could even have an asset with its own URL, but there is no page linking to it, right? But you could still link to it from social media, from an RSS feed, or just let users search for it, okay? And this will also achieve one very important point, which is, regardless of where the user is coming from, regardless of whether the user is coming from asset publisher, where there is a list of content, or a search, or feeds, or a very specialized portal, such as the blog entry, the way the asset will be displayed when the user clicks will always be the same, with the same URL, with the same look and feel, that you have a lot of freedom, or the marketer has a lot of freedom to decide how it looks. And just some further details. To begin with, we will allow having a display page for asset type, so it can be for web content or web content with this structure, or just for an individual asset. Okay, by default, blog entries have this display page. But for this specific blog entry, which is super important, I'm going to have a different display page. Eventually, we want to do something more complicated and do a rule-based system, so you can have more complex rules. And assets that have this and this and this other characteristic, but not this, will show this. Then next rule, etc. And we're going to apply this for blogs, web content, documents, and forum threads to begin with. Each of those will have their own display page. 5, multiple navigation menus, right? And in order to be able to achieve that, one associated concept is decoupling something that right now is coupled in Liferay, and that is navigation and pages, right? Right now in Liferay, when you create a page, you're actually creating the navigation, right? And we've only realized now, at least I have only realized now, but that's a bit problematic and we already knew. That's why we have a checkbox which says hidden. What does hidden mean? Do not add me to the navigation, right? And that's why we also have certain page types that says URL, right? And a URL is not a page type, right? But that was the way of keeping things simple. What we've realized is, in order to build modern sites which have much more complicated navigation, we need to decouple them. It adds a little bit of complexity, but it's much more powerful. And we've also actually found that it doesn't actually need to be harder to use. So it will be possible to create as many menus as you want and distribute pages in 1, 2, 3, or as many menus as possible. So the way this works is something like this, okay? So this is a tool that a marketer would use. This is a page that the marketer has just created from a page template. And if you see at the top, there is a fragment that has a menu, right? One of those, if you remember the slide with the dynamic elements, is that custom element which said menu item, right? So I have a little video to show what the interaction would be. So basically, the marketer notices the menu, right? And this would probably happen on hover. But for now, I had to click there. So here it says, oh, create a menu or select an existing menu. So the user selects an existing menu. This is the list of menus you have, right? In this case, they want to create a new menu. So this is the way of creating a menu. There are many things you can add to a menu, including pages, okay? So we click, we see the list of pages that exist, that could also be in a hierarchy. Add the page. We can also add other things, such as a URL, and then we can create a hierarchy. Here, we are creating a menu. In this case, a menu that is going to be displayed in that specific fragment, okay? So those are the 5 key ideas, okay? But we found that there are actually several additional benefits that we get from these ideas, and also more things that we can do on top of them. One of the very interesting improvements that all of this is going to take is search engine optimization. Because each asset, by being a first-class citizen, it has a canonical URL. It's also much easier to create a very comprehensive sitemap.xml that includes all of the content, all of the assets, or at least those that you want. Right? It's also much easier, thanks to these asset display pages, to create a customizable metadata. For this specific asset, this is the data that I want to expose as metadata for the search engine. And also, apart from these 3 roles, there are, as I said, secondary roles. And one very important secondary role in a modern site is the search engine optimization expert. So this will probably come at a later phase, but we are designing a search engine optimization console where this expert can go and tune all of the different characteristics all across the site to optimize search engine optimization. Second thing, translations, right? Again, that's another very important secondary role, the translator, or the person that intermediates with a translation company, right? And finally, in order to create personalized experiences, we actually think these improvements are also going to be a very good foundation for the features that Edson was talking about yesterday, such as analytics and A/B testing or multivariate testing. Finally, we're just not just providing these tools for each specific type of user. We are actually focusing on the whole flow of creation of the site. So we actually connect all the different activities from design, which happens outside of Liferay, to the creation of fragments, to the combination of fragments through page templates, and then the creation of pages and content. So if you remember one of the quotes that I said in the original keynote, our goal is not to make an awesome product, really. Our goal is to make users awesome. We want to make each of those profiles so that they feel they can do an awesome job by using Liferay. So if you've liked this idea, probably the question you're wondering is, okay, so when is it going to be ready? Next week? In a couple of weeks? So we're working on it very hard, but I want to make it very clear, this will take several releases, okay? So the first release will be together with 7.1, which is planned for next year. But I'm honestly expecting at least 4 releases to be necessary to make this idea fully complete. And this idea fully complete will probably not be exactly what you've seen, because actually we're sharing this to get your feedback. It will be much better than what you've seen. And our goal is to release early and often. So when I'm saying 4 releases, it doesn't necessarily mean 4 Liferay DXP or 4 Liferay portal releases. Hopefully, we'll be able to make releases more often than that, even if some of these releases will actually also be at the same time. So to wrap up, the challenge is huge, and we know it, and that's what motivates us, because we think our users will be able to do amazing things with this. In fact, we're saying this because in order to make that possible, we need your feedback. And with your feedback, this will change. So my question to you is, do you want to help shape it? Some of you have already said you want. Everybody else who is just the first time that you hear about it, come to me. We're setting up an online conversation to continue talking about this. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Jorge. I guess we have one question already show up here, so.
Hi, first, congratulations. It looks like, yeah, really great.
Thank you.
I have one question, like on the fragments, there was like a weather widget. Is it a portlet or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so very good question. I'm actually going to answer more than your question. What I've shown is the tools that we want to provide the users. Now, a different question is, how are we going to implement those tools? And many of those tools we can actually implement just on top of the existing technologies. So for example, these widgets, one possibility is that they are just portlets. Okay? So we're exploring 2 options. One is that they are just portlets. 2 is that there is a new, simpler technology. Okay? And 3 is that we allow both. So if you have portlets, you can actually expose them. But maybe another option is to provide simpler widgets. Okay.
All right. Any more questions? We have 2 more questions. All right, one here and one in the back. All right, we both already did 2.
Thank you. Is currently in the roadmap, or are you already thinking about the developer experience and the DevOps experience on how you deploy all this stuff to the production website, the production environment? So just let me make an example of what I could imagine. So everything is able to, we are able to define all of this as a bundle and then just deploy it, and every fragment type is already deployed on the production server and that kind of stuff. And are then fragments in the current roadmap, or are you already thinking on having a full versioning system of the fragments? So the question is, since all of that is code and content, are code and content be treated as code and content?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. It's definitely something that it's in the roadmap to solve. It's not something that we are settled or a specific solution to do it, okay? So we actually started a new framework for internal purposes that could be the seed for this. We call demo data creators. In the unconference, we also, there was a session about a DSL to solve exactly that problem that I could not attend, but the people in my team that attended thought it was very interesting, so that could be an even better approach. So the answer is yes, that's something we want to solve. We don't know what's the right solution yet, or the solution we will pick, but there are several options in the table already. Okay. Is there one final question?
Hi.
Hi.
I really wished it was here today. But I have two things. How do you look at staging using this and audience targeting? Is it based in, because you mentioned rules regarding to fragments, or
yeah. So first, related to staging, I was actually having a conversation with Mate, the lead of the staging team, a few minutes ago about some of the details of how it will be integrated with staging. But actually, it fits very well with the concept of staging. Actually, it helps solve many problems, because right now, each of those content that create a page have to be coordinated to be published. While with this, it will be treated as one content. So it's actually simpler with the exact same mechanisms. Regarding audience targeting, that's also a very interesting question. And we still have a lot of questions, but my personal view is that audience targeting needs to be very tightly integrated into these concepts.